The other top story this week involves The Rock, who made an appearance on Pat McAfee's show on Friday, which made headlines, and then he made headlines again later that night when he made a surprise appearance on Smackdown, his first since the show debuted on Fox in 2019. First, on McAfee's show, the subject of WWE came up, and Rock revealed that a match between himself and Roman Reigns, right, the Battle of the Tribal Chiefs, was, in his words, locked in for WrestleMania 39 at SoFi Stadium this year. He said he met with Vince McMahon and Nick Khan early in 2022, and that Nick was instrumental in bringing him and Vince together. They all flew to LA, they started talking about the potential for such a match, they all shook hands, they hugged, they said, let's do this. And then they had a year to think about things. And he said the thought was, let's not do something good, let's not do something great, let's do something unprecedented. We can have the match, but the bigger thought was, what can we do for the fans of this business that we love, where WrestleMania isn't the end of something, it's actually the beginning of something bigger. And when McAfee asked him about why they weren't able to make the match happen, this match that was supposedly locked in, Rock said that they couldn't figure out what something bigger would actually be. He said, we got really, really close, but we couldn't actually nail what the thing was. So we decided to put our pencils down. Then we agreed, hey, listen, there's a merger coming up, and then there's WrestleMania in Philly. I'm saying that's a potential too. I'm open. But again, let's figure out what that is, because the fans deserve something just incredible and unprecedented. And not only that, I want to deliver to the locker room and the boys and girls in the back who are working their asses off. What can we do to put them in a position where they're part of something that is a new change or an era in this world of pro wrestling? Cody Rhodes is in absolute shambles right now after hearing this news. I mean, he is just punching the air. I mean, at this rate, Hulk Hogan will tell the truth and Paul Heyman will pay back all the wrestlers he owed money to in ECW before Cody finishes his story. If you recall, last year, and really all through the Royal Rumble this year, we talked about the possibility of Rock wrestling at WrestleMania. Will he or won't he, right? He hasn't given WWE an answer yet. Triple H needs an answer from this guy because he needs to figure out what his WrestleMania plans are going to be and who's winning the Royal Rumble. And we didn't know if Rock had already given an answer or not. It didn't sound like he had given them a firm answer on what he was going to do. Some people thought Rock might show up in the Rumble match and win the entire thing, which would have made for an incredible moment and an incredible pop. And then reality would set in that Rock now has a championship match at WrestleMania that he doesn't need because he is not winning the fucking title. I actually think doing Rock and Roman at WrestleMania for the title undermines the match because we know Rock is not winning the title. But it never happened. And Cody Rhodes got the spot against Roman Reigns instead, and Cody didn't win. And it was a mistake the night that it happened, and it is still a mistake in hindsight not to do the title change on that show. I will die on that hill. Roman Reigns at this point is a special attraction. He is going to be a top star in this company no matter what. And if he ever did wrestle Rock, there is not a single person, I guarantee you, there is not a single person with a brain in their head who wants to see that match who wouldn't watch it just because Roman isn't the champion anymore. This is what some people still don't understand. The story between them is not about the title. It was never about the title. It was never about who the champion is. It's about the bloodline. It's about family. It's about who is the real tribal chief, who sits at the head of the table in that family. That's what it's about. That's the story. He says the match was locked in. Well, evidently it wasn't, because if it was, it would have happened. He said they put their pencils down. You don't lock something in pencil. You sign that shit in ink. Then it's locked in. Which brings me to this idea now that they may do it at WrestleMania 40 instead. So already the teasing has begun, right? Rock, oh, I'm open. I'm open to the idea of doing it at WrestleMania 40, but we got to figure it out first. You know, Rock stringing WWE along every year like this about getting back in the ring and wrestling again and then not doing it has become one of the more exhausting storylines in WWE. We go through this every single year. And I cannot sit here and tell you with 100% certainty that Rock will never wrestle again. I thought Steve Austin was done. I believed him after all the years that had gone by. Right? I think of all the money matches that were on the table that he turned down. The match with CM Punk back in 2013. All the big matches that he could have made millions from. Coming back, even if it was just once or once a year or once every few years. And he didn't do it. He turned them all down ever since 2003. And then 19 years later, he was back in the ring headlining WrestleMania with Kevin Owens. So you can never say never. And I know that Rock loves pro wrestling. He grew up in it. He's third generation. Even as the biggest star in Hollywood, he still comes back from time to time. He tweets about wrestling. He pays homage to wrestlers on his social media when they pass away. He pitched an entire wrestling-themed sitcom around his life to NBC. He produced a show for Vice called Tales from the Territories. I respect that he never forgot where he came from. He genuinely loves pro wrestling. But Rock has not wrestled a proper singles match in 10 years. I'm not counting the 6 seconds with Eric Rowan at WrestleMania 32. It was 10 years ago this year that he defended the title against John Cena. And in that match, he tore his adductor muscles off the bone. I didn't even know that I had adductor muscles until Rock tore his. I learned something new. Tore the tendons right off his pelvis. He had to undergo triple hernia surgery. I mean, he messed himself up badly. His body turned heel on him. And he was 10 years younger than he is now. He hurt himself in the first Cena match also. He tore his hamstring, but he really messed himself up badly in that second match. It actually delayed production on his Hercules movie, which is why these movie studios can ill afford for him to get hurt. I think he wants to wrestle. And you look at him cosmetically, he's in tremendous shape. He's physically bigger than most people on their active roster. You look at him on Friday night in the ring with Austin Theory. Austin Theory's in very good shape, but he ain't no Rock. Rock was basically dwarfing him in the ring. But that doesn't mean that he can get back in the ring and work a 15 or 20 minute singles match. Not without getting hurt or getting gassed. And that was happening back then. And again, he's 10 years older now. So we keep getting these teases and then nothing happens. He said in the interview, it's not the injuries because injuries are part of the game. And it's not my schedule because I have control of my schedule. I can control my schedule, he said. Fact is, he's a very busy man. He's got a lot on his plate. I didn't even mention him being a co-owner in the XFL. And the XFL season's going to be starting up early next year. All the promotion he's going to have to do for it, that's right around the time that he would have to be in deep training for WrestleMania. Because it's not a matter of him just showing up for one weekend and a handful of Smackdowns. The training he would need to do to get his body into ring shape for this match, it's very time consuming. Then you factor in the television appearances, the promotion for the match. It's a lot to ask. And it's a risk for WWE to bank on that and plan around it, especially if they can never get a firm commitment from this guy to actually do the match in the first place. I mean, talking about it over a year in advance is nice. It's nice to book long term. But they've got to have this shit locked in. Now, if you think back to Rock and Cena, they announced that a year in advance. But that was then. That was a long time ago. A lot can happen in a year. If they wanted to do that again and announce something next year for WrestleMania 41, boy, they better have that shit signed, sealed, and delivered. Because that would be very bad if something came up and all of a sudden their WrestleMania match that they already announced just went out the window. I don't think that's a risk they can take. They've got to have this shit locked in, and how can they ever expect to do that with someone who has so many other commitments? And if we take his word that it's not his schedule, that he can control his schedule and he can make it work, then here's my question. Why have we not seen him back in the ring then in 10 years? Because he's not wrestling again. I think he's more in love with the idea of wrestling again than he is actually getting back in the ring and wrestling. WWE would be better off trying to get him to make an appearance at WrestleMania, maybe hit someone with a rock bottom and a people's elbow, than to book him in an actual match. And I get it. Look, the idea of Rock coming back for one more match against his cousin would do gangbusters business. He's the biggest movie star in the world. One of the most recognizable names in the world. I know how tempting it must be for them. Just look at the social media numbers they've done since Friday night. It's off the charts. And now with Hollywood on strike, that's the only reason we got Rock and John Cena on that show on Friday night. That's how you know Hollywood is on strike, when Rock and Cena are back on WWE television. Now this strike is probably going to go on for many more months, right? But let's game this out here for a second. What if it gets resolved in 3 months? Or what if at the start of the new year they strike a deal and everybody gets back to work? He's going to be even busier than he was before. The longer the strike goes on, that makes it more likely that he could do something at WrestleMania. But this idea that he talked about of wanting this to be the start of something and not the end, what the hell does he mean by that? When Cody Rhodes came back to WWE, the very next night on Raw, he talked about the story. Finishing the story. Dusty Rhodes in Madison Square Garden holding up the WWE title, only to have it taken away from him. The title that, in his mind, was stolen from his father. He has to win that title for Dusty. He has to finish the story. It can't be the big gold belt. It can't be any other title. It has to be the WWE Championship. It has to be the one that Roman Reigns has. It's been weeks, by the way. We still don't know who's getting traded to Smackdown for Jey Uso. I still say it's Cody Rhodes. And I think the story for WrestleMania 40, after his loss this year, is Cody coming back and winning the title from Roman in Philadelphia, Rocky Balboa's city. The comeback kid. For a company that prides itself on storytelling, that is the story to tell. It's Cody's story to finish. It's bad enough he's been floundering around ever since SummerSlam with nothing to do. Could they finish the story at the Royal Rumble, at Tropicana Field, and have Cody win there and save Rock and Roman for WrestleMania, not for the title? Yeah, they could do that, of course. That would be the compromise. If they were going to do it on a non-Mania show, Rumble would be better than Survivor Series because it's in a stadium like WrestleMania is. WrestleMania being 2 nights, some people might say, well, they can do both. Because you got 2 nights of WrestleMania now instead of 1. Just do Roman and Cody on night 1, and you do Roman and Rock on night 2. That doesn't work. If Roman is finally pinned in a singles match after all these years, and I know Jey Uso pinned him in a tag team match, but if Roman is finally beaten, you don't do that on night 1. That hurts the match with Rock. And there's no fucking way Roman Reigns and The Rock are going on first on night 1. They're going to go in the main event of night 1 instead of night 2 with the Cody match going on night 2. They're not doing that. They're never going to get Rock to commit to a singles match. I just don't see it happening. He'll tease it, he'll talk about it, he'll smile and laugh and toast his Terramana, but it's not going to happen. What I think is more likely is he's involved in WrestleMania in some way. Maybe as a surprise, or maybe as the host, like he did at WrestleMania 27. He was the host of WrestleMania, although something like that would have made more sense for Hollywood this year, not Philadelphia. But maybe they do something like that. And when it comes time for Roman against Cody, it's Rock who's there to stop Solo Sikoa, or whatever is left of the bloodline by then, from getting involved in the match. Solo is the one who Samoan spiked Cody this year and cost him the match. Rock is there to make sure the bloodline doesn't get involved, that they don't get their hands dirty for Roman Reigns. And without the bloodline, Roman is vulnerable, he's weakened, and he finally loses the title. So it's the best of both worlds. You get Rock involved without the need for him to work an actual match. He hits a few moves, nothing terrible. And we get the title on a full-time performer, and Roman finally loses. It takes nothing away from Cody, because all Rock is really doing in that situation is he's turning it into a fair fight. He's not giving Roman a rock bottom or anything like that. That would be the best of both worlds. The fact that they had to put their pencils down, as Rock said, because they couldn't figure out what the story was that they were looking for, it's a sign that sometimes the best story is the most obvious one that's staring you right in the face.